Before we introduce the Governor Christie, I'd like to introduce the Honorable Governor Hogan, who made an effort to come here all the way with the governor to support him. That means a lot. So, His Excellency Governor Hogan, if he'd like to say a few words before the meeting. Thank you very much. Governor.
Well, thank you very much. It truly is an honor to be here this morning with my friend, the Governor of New Jersey. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out this morning, and thank you for caring enough to be involved. The people of New Hampshire have an enormous responsibility. You have an election coming up in 6 weeks that I think can really make a difference in the trajectory of this race. And I know that you take that responsibility seriously here in New Hampshire, more than any place else in the country. We've got a decision to make. We're not electing the entertainer-in-chief. We're electing the commander-in-chief. We have to decide who's going to be the best candidate for the Republican Party that has the best chance of winning in November, and who should be the leader of the free world. I can tell you, like Governor Christie, I come from a blue state in Maryland. I'm the only one other Republican governor in 48 years in Maryland. I would not be governor of Maryland without this man next to me. He was the chairman of the Republican Governors Association. We now have 32 Republican governors in this country, and that's because of the leadership of Chris Christie. And I can tell you, everyone, go ahead. I can tell you that every one of my colleagues has tremendous respect and admiration for this gentleman standing right to my left. And I believe, without any doubt, that he is the best possible candidate to win this election in November. And I believe that he's the man that has the leadership qualities to be President of the United States. So please join me with a warm welcome to the next President of the United States.
Governor Christie is a lifelong resident of New Jersey. He has a strong commitment to his state, in which he spent his entire life. He attended University of Delaware and graduated in 1984. Come on, be serious, guys. So he graduated in 1984. Then he attended Seton Hall School of Law, and he graduated in 1987. Governor Christie became the U.S. Attorney for District of New Jersey under President George Bush in 2002. He earned praise from both parties, the leaders of both parties, and brought national attention to his effort battling political corruption, corporate crimes, human trafficking, and terrorism. Christie was sworn in as the governor of New Jersey in November of 2010, and he was re-elected in 2013 for second term. His leadership was, he balanced the budget without raising any new taxes. He made education reform as his priority and put in statewide mandatory drug courts, which New Hampshire is now following that program. He introduced community policing in the whole state of New Jersey. And since Hurricane Sandy struck the state of New Jersey in 2012, Governor Christie's administration worked hard to assist the resident businesses, and he built the Jersey Shore, so in case we have another hurricane, to withhold that. Governor Christie is married to his lovely wife. Mary Beth, please. It's okay. Since 1986, and he is raising 4 children. Say hi when I tell your name, okay? Is that okay? What's so funny, anyway? Andrew? Okay. Hold your horse, okay. Sarah? Okay. Patrick?
Absent. He's at school.
What is he?
At school.
Look, you have students over here. Look at this picture.
Patrick means every day at school he can.
Where is Bridget? Oh, here she is, finally. it is an honor and a privilege to introduce the next President of the United States, Governor Chris Christie.
All right. Well, when you come to Hollis, you know you're really running for President of the United States. Thank you for your warm welcome. I want to thank all the veterans who are here this morning, first and foremost. Thank you for your service to our country. And I want to thank all of you for taking the time this morning, the students especially, who I'm going to be taking some questions from in a moment. I am thrilled to be here. And one of the things that I've been saying in the town halls the last couple of days is that, when I first started this adventure here in New Hampshire, back last spring, I had lots of folks who said to me that you are going to get to really know people here. Know their faces, know their names, really get to know them. And when you first start, you don't know if that's really possible, coming to a state of 1.3 million people. And I will tell you, now that we're here in December, there are so many familiar faces in this room. People who have been to town hall meetings, other events we've had, people that I've met in local diners and in restaurants. And everyone here in New Hampshire has been just so incredibly warm and welcoming to me and to Mary Pat and to our children. So it's been a real family adventure for us, and it is feeling like we've become a part of your family too. And we really feel very, very fortunate for that. Another part of my family is my brother, Governor Hogan. We're not really brothers, but we are two guys who govern as conservative Republicans in blue states. And I'm so incredibly proud of what Larry has done in his first year as governor of Maryland. The enormous problems that happened in Baltimore, and his leadership kept that city whole, gave the people hope again, because he's someone who's strong and resolute and unafraid to lead. And that's why I'm so proud to have his support for President of the United States, and so proud that he's up here and working with me. And I think it tells you a lot. Judge people by their friends. And I have a great friend. So Larry, thank you for coming this morning. I've heard the President of the United States say some interesting things lately. The other day he said that the reason he has trouble understanding the anxiety of the American people regarding terrorism is that he does not watch enough cable news. Then he clarified that statement yesterday. He said what he really meant was that cable news gives too much coverage to terrorism, and that's what making people nervous. And that really, he said, his only problem is that he needs a better PR strategy. I've got a great strategy for the President of the United States, okay? There's 13 months to go. Do us a favor. Start packing now. And I'll tell you, Washington, D.C. is a strange place. Mary Pat and I look at each other wondering, really? You really want to go down there? I mean, look at what happens to people down there. Congress, just passed this big spending bill. You have people who said they were opposed to it but didn't show up to vote. You have people who say that they want to destroy ISIS, yet they vote to take away tools from our intelligence community, our military, and our law enforcement to keep us safe. Something happens to people when they get down there. I don't know what it is. But here's a suggestion for the Congress. They're going home for Christmas now. Let's have them stay home for the next 13 months till there is adult supervision back in the White House. All right? Our country is in too desperate shape for us to allow for any more mistakes. Hillary Clinton said the other night in the Democratic debate that as to ISIS, we're finally exactly where we need to be. I wish Mrs. Clinton today, instead of doing whatever she's going to be doing, whether it's here in New Hampshire, in Iowa, wherever she's going to be today, I wish instead she'd get on an airplane and fly to Paris and meet with the parents and families of those men and women who were murdered in cold blood in Paris and tell them that we're finally where we need to be regarding ISIS. Then she could go from there and fly to San Bernardino, California, and meet with those families. And tell those families who will spend Christmas this year without their loved ones, tell them that we're finally where we need to be on ISIS. They asked her for her strategy. She said it'll be just about the same as the president's. So that means she supports capitulation and failure. I don't. Fact is that I'm the only person in this race who's actually investigated terrorists, prosecuted terrorists, convicted terrorists, and sent them to jail. I was named U.S. Attorney on September 10th, 2001 by President George W. Bush. And the next day, that job changed forever. And it changed not only for me as a professional, but for our family. You know, that morning on September 11th, my wife, Mary Pat, did what she always did. She got up, got out the house at 6 o'clock in the morning, drove to the train station, got on the train, took the train to Jersey City, got on the PATH train from Jersey City and took it to the World Trade Center, where she arrived at 7:30 in the morning in the basement of the World Trade Center, took those big escalators up to ground level and walked 2 blocks from the World Trade Center to her office in Lower Manhattan. And when we spoke that morning, after I dropped our children off at school, these two were 8 and 5 at the time. We talked, and I saw that one of the buildings was on fire. She said, "Oh, no, it's no big deal. It's a commuter plane flew into the building. We're fine, we're working, fire trucks are coming, everything's gonna be okay." While we were on the phone talking, the second plane hit the second building. And she told me, "Well, we need to be evacuated to the basement of our building now. I'll call you as soon as I can." I can tell you that for the next 5.5 hours, when I couldn't get in touch with her, and both buildings had fallen, and there were reports of all kinds of other stuff that turned out to be wrong, but we didn't know it at the time. Pipe bombs and explosions in other parts of Manhattan. There were 3 things running through my mind. First one was, what would I do without my best friend? The second thing was I got a call from the school. Because so many of the children who went to Andrew and Sarah's school had parents who worked in Lower Manhattan. The children were told about the attack during the day at school. So they said, you need to be ready when you pick them up. They're going to be asking about their parents. I was thinking to myself, what am I going to say to them if I don't hear from her about how mom is? And the third thing I really sat and thought about was I ready to be a single parent? Was I ready to raise these children, not just Andrew and Sarah, but we had Patrick as well, who was 1 at the time. Luckily, 10 minutes before I left to go pick them up at school, did the best phone call I ever got in my life. Mary Pat had made her way from Lower Manhattan with her colleagues with a wet t-shirt wrapped around her face so she could breathe to get through the grit and the grime and the smoke of Lower Manhattan to Midtown to a working payphone where she was finally able to get in touch with me and tell me she was okay. And that night she took a boat home to the Jersey Shore where I met her to pick her up. And as I saw her walking down the street, she had a blanket wrapped around her. I wondered what had happened. When she got off the boat, if you came from Lower Manhattan, the fire company was there. And they hosed you down with a fire hose from head to toe to get all the contaminants off of you. We got home that night and we heard from a friend of ours who Mary Pat had worked with down in Lower Manhattan and helped get a job. And his wife asked her if she had seen Frank during the day. She'd seen Frank leaving. And she said she hadn't. She said, well, I'm sure he's okay. I'm sure he's just at a hospital somewhere. I can't get in touch with me yet. He worked on the 44th floor of World Trade Center Tower 2. And he never came home. And now the gym at our parish, in our town, is named in his honor. One of Andrew's best friends lost his dad that day. He was working for Cantor Fitzgerald. No one came out of Cantor Fitzgerald alive. And now for the last 14 years, we've watched this young man and his siblings and their mom live their lives without their husband and their father. And every year on his Facebook page, he puts his father's picture there on his birthday. And just says one line, Dad will never forget you. What I fear in this country with this leadership we've had from this president, from Secretary Clinton and others, is that we're forgetting his father. we're forgetting Frank. We're forgetting the 3,000 people that were killed that day and what can happen to this country if we let our guard down. See, if you give me the chance to be President of the United States, I'll never forget that. And the reason I won't is for 7 years it was my job to protect this country as the chief federal prosecutor in the state that lost more people on September 11th than any other state but New York. And because I lived it. No one has to remind me. Every time that young man walks into our house now, they're both seniors in college. Every time we see him at a ball game or at a local restaurant, it reminds me. Every time we go to that parish and you go into the gym for the donuts and the coffee and you see Frank's name on the wall, it reminds us. Mary Pat and I and our children live among the victims of terrorism in this country. And so when I get to the Oval Office and sit behind that chair, you'll never have to remind me that the first and most important job of the President of the United States is to protect the safety and security of the American people. This President's forgotten that. I never will. And so many of these other issues are really important. They really are. Our tax system, our regulatory system, creating jobs, fixing the VA, making sure that we get an educational system that doesn't bankrupt our children on their way to success, making sure we have a K-12 system that gives these kids the very best opportunity they have to reach every dream and aspiration they have in their life. Those are all important issues, but everybody, if we don't get that first issue right, none of these rest of these issues can work. If you're worried about coming out of your home in the morning, if you're a parent worrying when you drop your child off at the school bus, then none of the rest of this works. So we need to get refocused on American priorities. Protecting the American homeland, taking care of the American people, first and foremost. My presidency will not be about me, like Barack Obama's presidency has been about him. My presidency will be about us, about the American people, all 330 million of us, who want something better tomorrow than we have today, not because we think we're entitled to it, but because we're willing to work hard to earn it. And that's the kind of country that I want to leave. That's the kind of country that I want to inspire. And that's the kind of country I want to serve. And if you give me the opportunity to do that, I promise you I will do all those things. So I'm thrilled to be at Hollis this morning. I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to let you ask me whatever questions you want. I know you, sir, are going to... I mean, did you see him? He was moving in on me like this, right? He's like, going to get that microphone, baby. He wants it. I'm not going to make him wait another minute. Thank you. Thank you for coming to Hollis this morning.
Croc TV.